I guess the old saying goes, in order to see somebody at their best, you have to see them at their worst. And this is definitely one of those worst moments for Lawrence. It's really easy to just completely hate this guy at the end of this episode, treating Holo that way. But again, I do appreciate when a writer is willing to show somebody in a really nasty state, because I do like the idea that Lawrence is flawed and he is getting too wrapped up into his stress to the point where he is lashing out. And yes, realizing that he did something wrong, but he is still lashing out in a stressful moment. And it sucks because you as a viewer are immediately going, dude, it's your fault. Why would you even consider that? But at the same time, in his mind, at the moment, he's so frustrated and he can't figure out why he can't get help. And he's facing the fact that he's going to be put into probably forced servitude. That's what Jacob is basically insinuating. You're going to be rowing a lot, or you're going to be mining. If we're going to put you to work, your freedoms are gone. You're not dead. Your freedoms are gone, which is pretty much death. And yes, as he's struggling and freaking out, he's told, hey, you're not getting anything because she's right there. And yeah, for a moment, I forgot exactly what the case was there. But I think what they're basically implying is, yes, they're in a church town. This is a very religious town that they're in. The church is at the center. And with him walking around with somebody that he's not married to, which these people know Lawrence, even the guy that he's seen at the very end, he knows Lawrence and he wants to help him. But he's going, but everybody knows you're walking around with her. And we all know you're not married to her. And that looks really bad. It looks like you're not a religious person. You're just running around with a hussy, basically. And so it's kind of tragic in the idea that, yes, immediately when Holo, the only reason she's there is because she's afraid for him. She wants to help him, and she's worried about him. He looks pale. He's freaking out. He's getting water thrown on him. People are throwing coins and laughing at him. He's at his worst, and he's groveling for money, which is probably extremely embarrassing, and she wants to help him. Well, you're the reason why I'm being told no. And he lashes out. Yeah, I like that he catches himself immediately, but it's like, oh, it breaks your heart. Absolutely breaks his heart. Which is so interesting because the whole setup for this whole situation is in the idea that he is going into this town and he's walking around with her and he's saying that he doesn't want to bring her into this place or that place. But it's all because he just doesn't want to have to introduce her as a wife or something like that, or a fiance. And it blows up in his face. It literally blows up in his face. It's so funny because when he goes back to Rowan, the Rowan Association, he could have easily gone in there and said, yes, we're married or whatever. Something to clarify that. Yes, going in there and saying they were lovers is probably not a good thing because that's exactly what blows up in his face. But he's traveling with her and thus it's giving the people that impression, well, if you're not married, we know you're not married. That looks bad. It looks really bad. It's tragic, but it definitely does kind of fit the setting that it's in. And again, partially because it's kind of religious, but I think even if it wasn't religious, it would be seen as, why are you traveling around with this beautiful person? Who is she? Is she just a bedfellow, basically? And a traveling bedfellow, which would technically look bad for him, his reputation and whatnot. So it's just a terrible setup, and it sucks. And like I said, I appreciate it because this is Lawrence at his worst. And so that kind of answers all the questions I had previously, again, from a perspective of somebody that has watched the first adaptation, read the first adaptation in the light novel format, and completely forgot most of it. I completely forgot about this bit, and it quickly came to me the moment that he started walking door to door. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this moment. This sucks. I'm waiting for it to come up. But yeah, finally getting an answer as to why everybody is raising an eyebrow to his armor. And that, I guess, explains why in the previous episode when he came to the town, they said good choice when he chose to use the armor to pay the taxes. I guess it's based on a percentage, and you can choose material or money, because what they're basically saying is that good choice because it ain't worth snot. And it's always a choice, I guess. Which would make me kind of wonder why they didn't go, well, if you're going to pay with the armor, we need the whole thing because it ain't worth much. But I guess it's based on percentage or something like that. So he's getting away with it. So yeah, that turns out that apparently the whole expedition was canceled, which I don't think they ever mentioned at any point, but I guess it just happened at some point and he just didn't know about it, probably through his travels. And yes, that means the armor's worth nothing. And so this entire thing's crashing. So that explains why in the previous episode we see that trading company was empty, is because apparently they had a lot invested in armor as well, and thus they're going bad. And so I guess by them transferring that debt over, they were really happy to see Lawrence. I like when he actually drops by there. He's literally like, "Oh, you must be Lawrence. Come on in. We want to talk to you. Goody, goody. Somebody we can pull money out of, because we're failing. We're in debt. We're incurring debt. We've invested so much in this armor. Now that's gone. That's all crashed. So we can get the money out of you. We can get not necessarily get the money out of Lawrence. We get the money out of Rowan." We know that Lawrence is going to have money. We know that Jacob over here is going to have to pay up. And that's where it all kind of tumbles down. It kind of sucks. And that is the whole idea there, is that the moment it crashed for them, it wasn't so much they pulled the rug out from Lawrence. It was more so the idea of, aha, at least we can get something from somebody to offset how much we're hurting right now. And it sucks. It really does. And I do like the whole scene with Jacob, because Jacob is telling him strictly, you made a very bold move. And I think that was kind of flagged the moment that Hullo was mentioning that at the end. I'm not really a person that would want to get into a massive amount of debts. That's not the type of person I would like to do. She's like poking at him for doing this investment, because essentially he is in debt with this whole thing, which I don't think they really kind of put properly when he first did that whole deal. He said, I want to borrow a double amount. And what I thought that was basically going to be is that you have that debt, and I'm going to trade it in, and whatever profit we make, you'll get part of it. But again, what they stated is that they transfer the debt over. So that it implies that the guy that he got the armor from in the previous town, he incurred a debt in order to give those armors to him, and that was the rug pull. I'm going to give that debt over to him. We're failing, the whole armor thing's failing, so I can't pay this, so I'm going to give that debt over to Lawrence. Which honestly seems kind of sketchy. It seems kind of sketchy, but I guess it's something they can do. And they did, because that's why Lawrence is in a bad situation. But again, I did like that whole scene with Hullo saying, I'm not the type that would like to do that. He's like, well, you're in debt for me. She's like, well, make me happy and I might be able to pay. As a person that owes you, you should make me happy or whatever like that. It was cute. But yeah, I did kind of hurt a little bit throughout this episode, because again, the setup here was that Hullo wanted to be presented, and I think it really is, to the area they're in. Because I think with every single other town they've been in, who's always with Lawrence? Hullo is. Hullo goes into really every single establishment with him. And it was only when they came to this town, which seems to be a lot more religious with the church at its center, that suddenly he's not bringing her into any rooms. He's not bringing her into this establishment, not bringing her in to talk with Romerio, not bringing her into, only finally bringing her in to talk to Jacob when he's in this bad situation. But yeah, it was interesting, because even Jacob himself brought that up. Oh, if you were bringing her in as a woman that you were going to marry or whatever, I would have you get a divorce or something like that. Kind of implying to the previous discussion where he's saying she's going to get tired of you if you're not successful and she's going to leave you. I think he was implying there as well. But here he's going, okay, so I've heard of people like you that will travel with somebody that's extremely beautiful. And basically do this whole kind of thought process, never ask questions. Don't even open that box. And I think it is kind of don't prod, don't even get involved kind of thing. But I do kind of wonder if he was talking about the idea of somebody traveling around with a wise wolf. Somebody that is beautiful, that is probably a spirit or a deity of something, and you don't really ask questions. But it could mean the idea of knowing that person is mingling with somebody that they really shouldn't be, and they're traveling around with some random girl that probably ran away from their parents, like some rich, noble girl that ran away from their parents. Don't prod. Don't get involved. It is a question mark as to what he was kind of implying there. That is sort of one of those moments where I kind of want to dig into the light novel to kind of get the context if it's in there, but it's still interesting. But again, I love the scene with Jacob. I think it was an absolutely fantastic moment of that, sad as it is, the rough parenting kind of thing. Like, this is my position, and I know how to create this barrier. If I do favoritism to you, because I think Jacob is extremely connected to Lawrence. Like, he was a father figure or something to him, brought him into the trade or whatever, raised him. He's known him for a long time, even talk about all these embarrassing things from his past. He can't show him favoritism because that's what makes him have the role he does. In order for this trading company to succeed, I can't choose favoritism. I have to lay down the law when I have to. And yes, I will have to make an example out of you just to prove people that I can do that. But still, there is an element there of he is sort of still doing favoritism to him. He's like, literally, I don't want you to die. I want you to do this. I want you to succeed. And I have chosen not to take you in now. They know in 2 days, Lawrence will, if he doesn't pay this off in 2 days, they will incur that debt. And then he's going to have to go out and find Lawrence. But Lawrence has come to him before then. And it seems to imply that normally they would immediately grab them and chain him up. But he's not doing that to Lawrence. He's giving him those 2 days to actually work it out. And yes, still kind of implying the idea that I'm going to eventually have to lock you up and possibly implied sell you off. So he is still showing favoritism there. He's just not helping him. I'm not going to pay that off. I'm not going to help you figure this out. I'm not going to help you find a place to trade it. I'm just going to allow you to go out there and fix this. Simply that. And yes, hopefully you'll come back if you don't, because I gotta lock you up and sell you off. But yeah, it is technically cool that Hello's the entire time there's like, yeah, if things go south, don't worry, I'll get you out of here. I'll transform, I'll grab you, I'll get you out of here. But obviously Lawrence is going to try to figure this out, which I think is the massive question mark here. I think Jacob sort of implies something to him in the idea that somebody, when they're at their worst, when they're in a pinch, that's typically when they can find some way of exploiting the system. They'll find business opportunities they normally wouldn't see because they're in desperation. It's just sad that Lawrence goes the easy route immediately and basically wastes a day. He literally has 2 days to figure this out. He spends his first day going for the simple task, which is to incur debts from somebody else to pay that debt. Borrow to pay off the borrow. And it's a smart move, but again, because he's giving this perception that he's running around with some random woman, people don't want to help him. It's seen sort of as, yeah, I don't want to get involved with that. And it's kind of interesting because the entire episode, you keep seeing these moments where people are whispering, people are watching him. And I thought that might be because he is essentially already known for having this debt. But I think it's more of the idea that he's going around with this beautiful woman and people are gossiping about it. Man, this beautiful woman's with him. Oh, that's Kraft Lawrence. Why would he have a woman with him? He's not married, is he? And again, I think that caused this big issue. So it sucks. It really does suck. Because again, the way that he reacts to Hello when she's just desperately trying to help him. Look at me. Calm down. Let's get some rest. You don't look well. You're not at your best right now. But again, it does play into the fact that he's in a massive amount of debt. He has no choice. He's panicking. His life is almost over. Even like he says to Jacob, so in 2 days, I'm dead. No, you're not dead. You're just going to be locked up somewhere. It's going to be heavy, painful, and dark. You're going to be stuck in a boat, rowing or something like that. We did get a little bit of Norah. Yes, Norah is showing up at the church asking the Pope guy if she can get a better location to do her herding. And he's like, no, you got this ability given to you by God to get the wolves away. Trust in that. Trust in what he's doing with you. Trust in him that he'll protect you. Yeah, just want to get you. I want to keep you over here. Just trust in him. Just stay over there. Just stay over there. He was nicer and more polite to her than I thought he would be. And maybe that's because he's in the house of God and he doesn't want to raise his voice in the house of the God. Because outside he looked like he had a stink eye on her. But inside he's like, oh yeah, it's okay, Norah, yeah. But yeah, we had a brief discussion between Jacob and Lawrence about her as well, pointing out the idea that, you know, people don't get involved with her. You know why? Because he's asking if anybody was going to travel to Lamtra, and he wanted to help her out by giving her a job with merchants. And he's like, oh, you're asking, I know why you're asking about this, because this Norah girl that everybody's staying away from can do that. Just so you know, people aren't getting involved. Why? Yeah, she's involved with the church. If you get involved with her, it's a complicated mess. Don't get involved. I was kind of curious as to why he didn't bring up why that was the case, other than the idea that the church is involved. Again, I was assuming they were going to bring up the idea that she is some sort of sorcerer or whatever, that even the church themselves will raise an eyebrow to you if you get involved with her. But yeah, other than that, there was some cute little moments between Hello and Lawrence before he did something mean. And the idea of like her teasing him about the idea of being an investment and an opportunity rather than this cute girl, Norah, who everybody wants to help out because she's so, you know, meager and whatnot and cute and has a hard life. And he's like, no, I like you more. Oh, well, show your love. Buy me peaches. It's so great. But yeah, that's the episode. My predictions, again, based on my inability to remember anything about my previous viewing of this series. is I would assume that he's probably going to figure out some way in order to, I don't know, maybe turn the armor into metal, to resources, which I would think that would be probably something that a lot of these companies would be doing. Buy up the armor and burn it down, melt it down. But I do obviously understand that a lot of this stuff is probably worth more than the original material itself, because they're taking the original material and they're crafting it into something, a design, and it's not necessarily the same value as just its weight in metal. So that probably wouldn't be an option, because he'd probably not get but maybe 10 of the currency for the 47 worth of it. So that kind of makes sense. So it's probably not a case of trying to trade it in. Going to what Jacob said and trying to find some sort of opening when you're in a pinch, I don't know. I mean, other than the idea of possibly figuring out a way of getting that debt removed from himself because the way they made the contract wasn't correct. Maybe he didn't sign over the debt when he made that transaction originally, and he could figure out a way of getting out of that. That could be it. The only other thing I can think of is because they're putting so much emphasis on Norah and this idea of traveling to this one other area, what was it called, Lamtra? It could be that they're trying to create so much emphasis on how Norah can take people, safely to Lamtra, that he will have to go to Lamtra in order to sell it at a decent price. Maybe word of the expeditions hasn't gotten to Lamtra yet, and thus if he gets there quickly, he can sell them and thus get rid of that and get the full value of them. That's my only other prediction, is that would be another way to kind of rope Norah back into the situation, because they're putting so much emphasis on that. But we'll see. Anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 9 of Spice and Wolf, Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button is on my content. I do news reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have Patreon link, tips, links, everything, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care.